The Range Rover P38A was Land Rover's dangerous second album syndrome. It really struggled to replace the iconic original Range Rover, despite offering a raft of improvements. But what are they like to drive today? Well, we thought we'd take this early 4.6 litre V8 model out on the road to find out.
But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition.
So you can imagine Land Rover's dilemma. Almost by accident, they'd created an automotive icon in the form of the Range Rover when it was introduced, taking off-roading upmarket. And come the 80s, the Range Rover was a proper posh luxury 4x4. Range Rover was at home on farm tracks and on the King's Road in equal measure. Now owned by British Aerospace, of course, they didn't have huge pots of money to even go replacing the original Range Rover, but replace it they did. Styling exercises were put out to the likes of Bertone and Pininfarina, and it was an in-house Land Rover design that ultimately got the nod from the customer clinics. The car was more aerodynamic, it was stiffer, it was safer, it was better for noise, vibration, the interior was better laid out, better materials, more stylish, there was more space, a bigger boot, everything was improved. And yet, people didn't really take to the P38A for reasons that aren't immediately obvious. Some people found the styling just quite bland, unfortunately. And it's true, it does lack some of the idiosyncrasies of the original one. It's tried to retain that camshell bonnet, but does sort of lack some of that eccentricity, those sort of simple but quaint lines. I don't know. The interior is definitely an improvement. The classic Range Rover was facelifted in '92 and it also got air suspension. The interior was a bit of a hodgepodge really. It looks like it'd been made up of several egg crates all just stuck together, buttons just thrown at it for good measure. But this is a much more coherent layout. It's a lot of sort of Rover-esque bits, so it's not overly surprising. It's a parts bin special. And of course, by the time it went on sale in 1994, Land Rover had new owners in the form of BMW. Munich weren't exactly delighted to find that the Range Rover very quickly picked up a reputation for poor reliability. In the early days, the big troubles were all electrical. It had what's called a body control module, which basically controlled all of the electrics. It was a unit housed under the passenger seat and it had dedicated diagnostic software, which even the main dealers weren't really ready for. This body control module would drain the battery, it would set the alarm off, it would cause other random faults. Electrics would just go haywire and the dealers were initially incapable of fixing it. For people spending decent chunks of money on buying their prestigious Range Rover, this was not a good look, and BMW were obviously mortified. It was available with a 4-litre V8 or a 4.6 V8, Rover's venerable ex-Buick engine, and BMW had lent out their 2.5-litre straight-six turbo diesel engine, which was somewhat underpowered for a vehicle that's just over 2 tonnes in weight. While the V8 had uprated Gems Lucas engine management, it still wasn't the best system in the box, so it's no surprise that BMW preferred to go with Bosch engine management come a 1999 facelift. The other issue that quickly became apparent was that of the air suspension. It still managed to bestow the Range Rover with world-class off-roading capabilities, and in theory, better on-road manners as well, but it is known to be quite problematic. The air suspension can leak, pitching and rolling in corners or incorrect ride heights, and some owners in later life even made a full coil spring conversion. But what is it like to drive? Well, in truth, it's like an enormous sofa on wheels. It's really squishy, comfortable, corsetting. You feel imperious, of course, driving along in this lovely high-up driving position. The steering is pretty rubbish, if I'm honest. It's really floaty, there's no feel to it at all. You feel like you can turn it half a turn and not change direction. It's just all very vague. All the controls are close to hand. Nice sturdy automatic gear lever selector here. Lots of very familiar kind of Rover 800-esque switch gear. Seats are lovely. I've got these lovely armrests. There's electric adjustment. They all work on this example, which is good to know. There was a wide range of spec as well if you wanted to. There was a base, an SE, an HSE, and of course a Vogue. You could also specify other special editions like the Westminster and the Holland and Holland. There were also anniversary editions, one in 1998 to mark 50 years of Land Rover and one to mark 30 years of the Range Rover. Sadly, the P38's reputation didn't really improve after those early years, and despite gradual improvements during its 8-year lifespan, it was clear that owners BMW had really kind of run out of patience quite early on for this model and quickly kick-started a plan to replace it with what we now know to be the L322, which was introduced at the back end of 2001 going into 2002. Whilst the Range Rover Classic enjoyed a 24-year production run, the P38A was only on sale for 8 years. And of course, by the time the L322 came on sale, BMW were pretty much ready to throw in the towel on Land Rover anyway. And I'm not convinced that the L322 was any better in terms of reliability. It just inherited a whole catalogue of other issues, quite frankly. As ever, I'm the sucker for the underdog. The P38A got perhaps unfairly tarnished with a bad reputation for reliability, but a lot of it was early car problems, teething issues with a brand new model that the dealers just weren't quite ready to fix. Nowadays, not only is there an abundance of part support for these models, there's great club support, there's companies that offer all the specialist advice that you need, and if you buy a decent one to begin with and maintain it properly as it should, actually, they're really decent cars. Yes, the styling's a little bit bland, it's not quite as iconic as the original car, but I think it's a handsome machine. The V8 engine is an absolute joy. It's a luxurious, comfortable, refined vehicle. It's distinctive. Of course, the Range Rover P38A would do things differently if it had its time again, but it didn't. But that doesn't make it a terrible car. 12 grand might seem like a lot of money for a P38A, but if you think what other cars you might get for £12,000, what, a 5-year-old Nissan Qashqai? Yes, this is going to cost a bit to keep on the road and keep in good condition, but I know what I'd rather have.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.